Welcome, fantastic friends, to the new episode of the Fancast at Four podcast, the number one Fantastic Four fan casting podcast on the internet.
Presumably.
I'd say unobtainably. I'm Dan Bettenhausen.
And I'm Jack Mayer.
And we are your hosts as we venture into the what ifs of Marvel's first family, who will be appearing in Phase 6 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
With Matt Shakman set to direct the MCU's Fantastic Four film, we still can explore what it would be like if a different director was behind the camera and who might they cast. This week, we are excited to have Emily Essex joining us. Emily is one of my very good friends that I met via virtual Sundance about 2 years ago now, and somehow we've remained friends since. Emily, please tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Hi, guys. Yes, Jack and I met two years ago.
2 years ago now at this point.
Met on Letterboxd and Twitter, and now we are in-person friends.
We have hung out multiple times. We've seen Coda and the Batman together, which I think is a pretty good
and
combo.
I made us t-shirt. I made us t-shirts for the Batman.
She did make us t-shirts, which I believe I still have hanging in my closet. But yes, Emily is also probably the only person I know who is as big a fan of Tenet as I am. Probably true. A bigger fan, to be honest.
I have
Dan
seen
is
Tenet.
Looking.
I knew there was at least a couple, so you two must be them.
I've seen Tenet on
very impressive.
The Tenet trifecta, if you will.
She is a giant film nerd, like film stock.
Yes, I love physical film. I love seeing things on film. I do film photography. Love film as a medium.
So yeah, that kind of gets into my questions. You kind of talked about some films that you like. Like, what kind of are you a Marvel fan? If either way, what other kinds of movies are you really into? Like, what are your bona fides when it comes to film?
I used to be a Marvel fan. I'm not a Marvel fan anymore. I just do not keep up with the MCU anymore because I finally realized that I don't have to do that and I don't need to spend my time doing that. I saw the Avengers, the first Avengers in theaters, and I think I saw everything up to Endgame in theaters. And then after that, I said, you know what? I think I'm past my MCU phase. But other than that, what movies? Oh, Jack knows that this is weird. A weird question. At Top Gun is probably my favorite movie. Yeah. We've come up with something called Emily Core, and it can't really be described, but it's a vibe. It's a specific vibe. Is Emily Core? It's
very specific vibe.
A lot of dad movies. Like, I'm a big fan of like dad core cinema.
I am pro dad joke, so I'm right there with you.
Just to name a few films that are on the Emily Core list, we have Now You See Me, Mainstream, The Batman, Sweeney Todd, The Graduate, and of course, Surf's Up.
Surf's Up is an incredible movie. My entire personality and humor has been developed from it.
I mean, hey, Jack, you and I know some other big Surf's Up fans.
We do indeed.
In our circle, so feels appropriate. And like I said, love Top Gun as well. Nothing wrong with Top Gun. Like, compared to the movies that Jack and I have praised many times on this podcast, like, it's not a strange list, at least relative to that. With Emily introduced, let us take an opportunity to introduce the director we will be discussing. This week, we are featuring a Canadian director who is considered to be one of the industry's most innovative filmmakers. He is known to push the cinematic boundaries with innovative technology. He has made his name with big-budget sci-fi action thrillers. There was one Best Director win at the Academy Awards was earned from an epic drama.
Outside of his one win at the Oscars, he has been nominated for Best Director twice, with 3 of his films also nominated for Best Picture. He has been nominated twice at the BAFTAs and won many Saturn Awards. Finally, he has made 3 of the top 5 highest-grossing films worldwide. This week, we are featuring none other than Big Jim himself, James Cameron. Dan and Emily, what else comes to your mind when you think of James Cameron?
Big, dumb, stupid movies that are so much fun to go see.
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, long, epic, and I use the term epic, not necessarily ironically, but like annoyingly, like people who like to use the word epic too much throw around. A lot of generated effects. I mean, again, as far as filmmaking goes, he is kind of the guy to make them look new, modern, cutting edge, as mentioned. So at least if you're going into kind of a CG fest, at least it's going to look kind of different and something we haven't seen before.
I think James Cameron is a genius when it comes to technology and pushing the boundaries of what computer generated images can do. I don't think he can write a line of dialogue to save his life, though.
Absolutely not. It's never gonna happen. I think we talk a lot about like theme park movies when we talk about like Marvel, like superhero movies, the MCU. I think Big Jim also makes theme park movies, but it's a theme park I want to go to and I want to spend a lot of time there, as opposed to the same Six Flags you've been everywhere. It's Cedar Point.
Fair enough. I do think he's gotten kind of into this Michael Bay territory. And hear me out before you jump down my throat. In that he's really locked into these movies, this current franchise that we'll be talking about soon, and that he's not giving himself a lot of room to explore other avenues. Kind of like Michael Bay with the Transformer movies. But then we get something like Ambulance, and it's like, oh, that's the Bay we know and love. Like, if we get, I wish he would kind of take a step back, go back to his roots, to the films he was making before said franchise that he's currently in the middle of, and kind of go back to that sci-fi thriller route with maybe not as big of a budget that he currently is working with, to kind of have maybe a renaissance, in at least in my mind.
Well, now I want to see James Cameron's Ambulance.
I do kind of want to, or like Fire Truck, James Cameron's Fire Truck.
Oh, that would kind of go hard.
That'll be good. James Cameron's Coast Guard vessel. It's gonna be on the water.
like now I'm just I know that's not what you said, but now I'm imagining like the duck vehicles at like the Wisconsin Dells. Just some action thriller based around like a semi-submersible. Like
James Cameron's hospital boat, like when they brought the boat into New York during COVID, and I don't think anyone ever was on the boat, but
it's just about the boat.
It's about the boat.
James Cameron's
in the style of Ambulance.
I think that this is a great segue into our first segment, which is 4 fantastic films. Here we will discuss 4 films directed by James Cameron. However, for this segment, rather than 4 individual films, we are going to broaden it a little to include franchises as a whole. And we are going to start with the Terminator franchise, specifically Terminator and Terminator 2, the ones that he directed.
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't so obvious, this is what I was kind of alluding to before, him kind of returning to what the like movies that are more similar to what these Terminator movies were, despite the big budgets and the effects that he had, especially with T2 Judgment Day. It still felt like smaller movies than what he's currently making. I think he does build suspense, uses technology extremely well, but he also, these are probably the movies, you might say differently with a future film we're talking about, but at least I thought the characters in these films, especially like Sarah Connor, one of the best female protagonists, if not just general protagonists in film history. And I think he should get a lot of credit for being able to build a film around Linda Hamilton, to take this role, take Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator, and kind of build this big budget film that still felt very small and intimate.
The original Terminator was the first James Cameron movie that I ever watched. And I remember being like sort of scared by it, to be honest. Like, it's a very effective horror movie, and I think I was expecting more what T2 was, and I think part of the reason why I like T2 more is because it was more what I expected from the Terminator franchise. But that first Terminator is such a tight, good horror thriller that happens to have this really cool sci-fi element to it. T2 is pretty, I would say it's as good as a masterpiece. Like, I've probably seen T2 like 7 or 8 times at this point. I love that movie, even though it's like not super well written. Again, James Cameron's not a great writer, but it's got a lot of really memorable lines, and the actors really sell every moment. Eddie Furlong is so good as John Connor. Robert Patrick is terrifying as the T-1000. I love the Terminator franchise.
I think recently James Cameron's does a lot of sleek, very polished, big things, and I love a grimy, dirty, dark movie. I would love to see him do something like that again with the technology that he's working on, but kind of go back to that kind of dark horror gritty movie kind of aesthetic.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think as great as the first Terminator is, I do love the second one more. I think the action's great. The turn from Arnold being the villain in the first one to being kind of the hero in the second one, I think, is pretty incredible kind of bait and switch that they give the audience. Like I said, I'm not sure what the marketing was going into T2, but I would like to think kind of setting it up to make people not realize that that's the twist would be a pretty big surprise that you'd get. And again, like you said, in both of them, some iconic lines, "I'll be back," "Hasta la vista, baby," like all of those, despite his lesser talent for writing as opposed to directing, are still things that people quote ad nauseum. And yeah, I think they're great. Some great scenes again when you have Arnold like in the lava in the end of T2 with the thumbs up. Just some iconic moments that I wish, again, I keep repeating myself. I just wish he'd kind of return to that form as opposed to the track he's on.
I think he can't write a character or a story or like a more than 5 words at a time, but boy can he write like a bit that just will be ingrained in our memory. Like, "I'll be back, I'm king of the world." Like, he can, that's
Arnold
what he
just smiling.
That's what he can write.
He's really good at that stuff. Jumping ahead, 2 years after Terminator was a success, he was handed the sequel to Alien with 1986's Aliens.
Plural.
Yeah, no, more than one. It's crazy. And also, I think it's so fascinating because I don't think a lot of people remember that this was like an Oscar-nominated performance for Sigourney Weaver for this movie. Well deserved, but it's really funny that like James Cameron nowadays is like this Oscar darling because of his technology, but in the 80s, and he was getting nominated for acting Oscars.
Like, you can't imagine him getting nominated, making a movie with Oscar not Oscar. I mean, he makes them, but anyone getting nominated for an Oscar for his movies these days.
I would never see Sam Worthington getting a Best Actor nomination anytime soon. All respect to Sam Worthington, but
yeah, whatever respect is deserved. I like Aliens, but weird to form, at least from my taste. I surprisingly like Alien more. I'm not, it may have been very clear in the podcast, I'm not a horror guy, and Alien is much more that. But I really liked that setup, whereas this was a fun action movie. I thought the intensity was, and like my heart rate was going a lot more in the first one, but I kind of look at this Aliens as, again, a great film, but more kind of practice for T2, which comes because we're getting a sequel. So it's like, okay, here's my chance to kind of tell a follow-up story. And then he took what he learned from Aliens and took what worked, what didn't work, and applied that to T2. And again, Aliens, great movie, great turns, like you said, by Sigourney Weaver. Bill Paxton, Paul Reiser was a very smarmy, slimy businessman. So I thought he got some pretty solid performances. And again, some great one-liners. Might not be good at developing dialogue, but at least has some great one-liners in his movies.
Get away from her, you bitch. Game over, man. Game over.
I think it's also an interesting kind of exercise of him making a movie that is based on material that he did not create. Especially because his character building is a little
iffy, maybe
not up to par sometimes. But him taking a world and building on it, because what he does best is world building. That is what he knows how to do, and he is incredible at.
Mm-hmm.
And the xenomorphs were scary because with the immense amount of xenomorphs that we got compared to the one in Alien, also I thought was extremely effective building the intensity from that single ship, single kind of location style to this more expansive battle among more people, more aliens, xenomorphs.
If we want to talk about James Cameron building a single ship, though, let's talk about Titanic. James Cameron's Best Picture winner from 1997, won 11 Academy Awards. My personal favorite James Cameron movie. I think that this is the most properly rated movie of all time. It is so good. It's so dumb, but I love every bit of it. It is a rom-com for like the first hour and a half, and then a 90s disaster movie for the second hour and a half, and it works perfectly. It is so, it's like Armageddon meets freaking When Harry Met Sally, and I love it.
I
This
hope someone's
movie
pitching that movie. I want someone like, hey, oh wait, what do we need? Armageddon, Harry Met Sally. It'll write itself.
Exactly, and it did.
This is my favorite James Cameron movie. This is the first James Cameron movie I ever saw. I saw the first time I saw Titanic was in my middle school English class. We watched the family-friendly edited version of it, which
So no boob.
apparently there were no boob. No, I don't remember what cursing is in the movie, but it definitely didn't have that, and like you could clearly tell it's like that it was edited over it, and it like popped up a big like family friendly edited every time it cut something out, which was very funny. And then after we spent like 3 days watching that in class, I immediately went home and got Titanic from the library and watched the real thing. But I love this movie so much. I've seen it. I saw both re-releases in theaters. The what was it, 2012 re-release? Is that
2012,
when they,
yeah,
for the 100th anniversary of the Titanic sinking, which is just batshit bizarre. Like that is so funny. And then again a couple weeks ago in 3D, which it has no right looking as good as it does in 3D. There's no reason for this movie to look good in 3D, but somehow it does. And I don't like 3D movies even, but it looked really good.
Yeah, I mean, this movie was a star-making performance for Leo, for Kate. You have a great performance from Kathy Bates. Not a large role, but a very important and kind of, I'd say, critical role. Billy Zane plays a great villain.
the goofiest role of all time, Billy Zane. Put the diamond in the coat and put the coat on her.
Some extremely memorable scenes too. One that always comes to mind is after that awkward dinner where Leo's invited to like the first class meal, and then saves Rose invited to the meal, and then they go to like the lower decks to like dance and have fun. Like that's always probably the most memorable scene to me, until you get to them trying to escape, like all the water rushing in. The behind the scenes footage of like the ship actually breaking is pretty incredible. Probably the first time I saw a naked woman, which, you know, for a young boy, life-changing in some ways.
A formative moment.
Yeah. I mean, looking back, less so than you would think, but
Same here. We'll say this is also probably the movie that set the tone for the Oscars going forward, weirdly enough, because it was such a popular movie that then won Best Picture. The Oscars kind of did a 180 after that, and we're like, no, we can't have the popular thing associated with the art thing. We have to only nominate movies that are made for $2 million and that 4 people see.
Well, joke's on them. Top Gun Maverick saved cinema.
Top Gun Maverick's gonna win.
Top Gun Maverick's gonna win. You're calling it right now.
Because Titanic winning Best Picture was incredible. Like, there's nothing bad about that, and there's gonna be nothing bad about Top Gun Maverick winning Best Picture, which I can't believe is happening in a week and a half.
I want to give special call out to Gloria Stewart, who played Old Rose, the funniest serious performance I can recall in a long time. Like, and then her just like, oh, dropping the heart of the sea into the water is never not funny. So just call out to Gloria Stewart. If you're alive, hope you're listening.
Yeah, thanks for being such a great fan of the show,
right,
Gloria.
Right.
She has some incredible line readings. And also Titanic inspired an incredible musical. Not the Titanic musical, but Titanic. I saw it the day after I saw the Titanic release.
Well, James Cameron would then not make another movie for 12 years. And then after that, he wouldn't make another movie for 13 years. But those movies are both in the same franchise. We have 2009's Avatar and 2022's Avatar: The Way of Water.
Neither to be confused with Avatar: The Last Airbender. But easy to
Directed
do.
by one of my favorite men of all time, M. Night Shyamalan. Emily, I think you are the person who likes Avatar the most in this podcast. I believe so.
I think that's wild because I was famously an Avatar hater for a very long time. I stood by Avatar was not good. I did not like Avatar until I rewatched the original a couple months ago before Avatar 2 came out, and I was like, wait, I'm a reformed Avatar hater. I watched it and I was like, you know what? This goes really hard. It's so stupid. It's so dumb. It is so much fun. It's ridiculous. I never thought I was really gonna like it. And then I was like, the new one, I don't know. I don't know about this high frame rate thing. I hated it in The Hobbit. Looked terrible. Not a 3D person. I don't know. It worked. The magic of Big Jim kind of worked for me. And then I went to Pandora, Animal Kingdom, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, this is good.
And you saw it in real 3D.
Real 3D, like real life.
Dan, I think you probably are the most negative on the franchise, so I'll go next. I do not like the first Avatar movie at all. I tried reforming, but I just couldn't do it. That movie just I can't do the first Avatar. It just does not work for me in any way, shape, or form. And so I was not excited for Way of Water, but I did end up seeing it twice. Both times I thought it was fine. I saw it once in 3D and I thought the 3D was really good. And then I saw it in a way where I could feel like I was in the movie, not 3D. And that was also very good.
You're on the ship.
I was swimming in the water. I could feel it in my chest.
You were swimming through.
I was swimming through the Way of Water. I think that movie is perfectly fine. It's a 3-star movie. The first act of it is really tough to get through. But then when they actually get to the water tribe, I'm like, all right, this is cool. And then the last third is just a giant action sequence, but awesome.
It's a nature doc. The second half of that movie is a nature documentary, and I love it. It's a better My Octopus Teacher.
Yeah.
I hate my octopus teacher, but this is
we haven't discussed it on the podcast, but we don't diss My Octopus Teacher on here. No, I it's fine to talk shit about My Octopus Teacher all you want.
Dan, what do you think of the Avatar franchise?
Really fucking dumb. For as great as it looks, it is that bad of a story. Like, it is the most reductive, most copy. Like, I've seen the story done better 100 times, and the only thing going for it is the visuals. Granted, incredible. If I didn't have to listen to it and I could just watch it, it would be a much better experience. And that goes for both of them. Like, the scene, Jack, you don't like the first one. I like the first one a little bit more. I think some of the aerial scenes when they're in the helicopter things, fighting around is pretty cool. Them, like, learning how to fly the Banshees, I thought was pretty cool. Being in the water in the second one was pretty cool. But the word unobtainium is used one too many times, and that is the first time. That is the first time.
Puzzle answer.
It was, in fact, a New York Times crossword puzzle answer, and it was awesome. I saw it.
Shame on Will Shortz. Shame on Will Shortz.
I immediately texted Emily, "You have to do this."
And I said, "I already did it. I know."
It was so funny.
Stephen Lang's a fine villain. Fine, you know.
Why is James Cameron trying to make him like the Darth Vader of the franchise, though? It's like he's going to be the villain in every single Avatar movie. Like, no,
now we've got clones. Why do we need clones?
But no, not just clones. Avatar clones.
Avatar clones, yes.
And also, that's the thing. For every bad thing that the Avatar franchise does, I give it almost a pass for the Na'vi wearing sunglasses meme that it has given us. This post was fact-checked by true Na'vi patriots with that guy is one of my favorite images of all time.
So funny. I like the theme park more than any of the movies. And I think because you actually just get to see everything and be in it, and you don't have to live any of the story because it's just there. It's cool. Flight of Passage is an amazing ride, which has in fact, so Flight of Passage has been open for 5 years now, maybe. That entire time, it's had all of the Avatar 2 stuff in it. The whales have always been in the ride. The sea tribe has always been in the ride, and we had no idea. And I lost my mind.
I will give you one
Riding
thing that
it?
I liked. One thing I like. I liked the whales. The whales were cool.
Those are
Pro
awesome.
pro Avatar
So cool.
Pandora whales. But I will. This is the metaphor I will end on. You know how I know these movies are about as good as AI art? There was a whole storyline how having an extra finger is bad, like in AI art that you see on the internet. Please, let's conclude this before I blow a gasket.
I have one more thing. I have one
Please,
more thing.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, in Pandora, in Animal Kingdom, they refer to the movie as a documentary. It's the documentary.
I didn't think it could get dumber. I did not think it could get dumber.
No, the story of what happens with the theme park, like why Pandora exists at Walt Disney World, is incredible. Jenny Nicholson has this amazing hour-long deep dive on Avatar World. So if you have the time after listening to this podcast, go listen to that because it is so worth your time.
I'd like to think there's more we could say regarding James Cameron films, but God, I hope not. So I think that does mean it's time to get into our fantastic castings. Here, each of us will cast the 4 main members of the Fantastic Four: Reed Richards, Sue Storm, Johnny Storm, Ben Grimm, and their nemesis Dr. Doom, with an actor or actress James Cameron has worked with previously and who has not had a major role in the MCU. Emily, as our guest, you have the honor of sharing your cast list first.
All right, buckle up, everyone. So as Reed Richards, I have cast Victor Garber, and I want to specifically cast like Godspell era Victor Garber with the afro and all that. And this is James Cameron. Everyone's gonna be in mocap. It's no problem. Everyone can look. Sigourney Weaver has played a 12-year-old.
Also dumb. Sorry. Also dumb. Also dumb.
Also very dumb. It was weird. It made me uncomfortable. Speaking of Sigourney Weaver, I have cast her as Sue Storm. My Johnny Storm is Jack Champion, and if that name doesn't ring a bell, there's no reason for it to, but it's Spider in Avatar 2. Also weird with the Sigourney Weaver. That's
very
weird.
dumb.
That was uncomfortable. For my Ben Grimm, I have cast the unsinkable Molly Brown herself, Kathy Bates. And for Von Doom, I have cast the star of Avatar 2, Avatar: The Way of Water, Payakin.
The whale.
I would like to make it known that he will be moving and walking around like King Shark from the Suicide Squad.
Excellent.
So good. I like when Jack sent me your cast list. I'm like, oh, Kathy Bates, inspired casting for Ben Grimm. And like, my brain just passed over Payakan as Dr. Doom until yesterday when I was like putting the script together. I'm like, wait, what the hell did you just do? I need to hear this as soon as possible and perfectly teased. So I can't wait to hear your pitch. But before we hear that, Jack, let's hear your cast.
Sure. So as my Reed Richards, give me just 1 second. I have cast Ioan Griffith, and I just paused so that I could get that pronunciation correct. He is going to be my Reed Richards. Now, you might be thinking, wait a minute, hasn't he already played Reed Richards? Yes, he has. As my Sue Storm, I have chosen to cast Edie Falco, who has appeared in multiple James Cameron films, but is now most famous for having a giant hand bring her a normal-sized cup of coffee in Avatar: The Way of Water, a moment that had me actually scream with laughter in the theater the first time I saw it.
Super dumb.
So dumb. So dumb. As my Johnny Storm, I have cast Giovanni Ribisi, who basically played Johnny Storm in Avatar, but I'm imagining him less as his Avatar role and more as his role in Ted. As Ben Grimm, I have cast Paul Reiser, who is just excellent in everything, and I think would be excellent as Ben Grimm. And then finally, as Doctor Doom, Dan and I had the same Doctor Doom initially, so I decided to switch mine because it still works for the movie to Stephen Lang, who is, of course, Colonel Miles Quaritch himself in Avatar and Avatar: The Way of Water.
Stephen Lang was my original Doom, and then I came up with a much better idea.
So, which we cannot wait to hear now. Dan, let's hear your cast.
Yeah, you both didn't leave me with a ton. I mean, some great talent that I have here, but like, oh, that would have been good. That would have made for like a more interesting movie. Okay, so I'm gonna go with the obvious choices, clearly. For Reed Richards, I went with James Cameron role that made him a star, Leonardo DiCaprio. Though he'll never actually be in a Marvel movie, I'm convinced of this. He will in my world. In this James Cameron fictional universe, Leo will take the call and be like, yeah, I'll be the stretchy guy. For Sue Storm, I took his counterpart in Titanic and cast Kate Winslet. This is actually something I would really love to see. I don't know if it would happen now, but like if we ever got Kate Winslet as Sue Storm, I would actually be legitimately excited. I think she'd knock it out of the park. For her brother Johnny, I'm going to utilize some de-aging technology and cast an actor who led The Abyss, and that's Ed Harris. Again, imagine a much younger, de-aged, mo-capped, on fire Ed Harris. For Ben Grimm, we're going to turn to not a lesser known movie, but a smaller movie that he directed, True Lies, and cast Tom Arnold. Yes, Tom Arnold as Ben Grimm. Fortunately, he's going to probably be all like done up in like rock tech and whatnot. So we're just going to have to hear him and not, see him.
I'm just imagining James Cameron inventing rock tech now.
Rock tech. It just rocks are just glued to Tom Arnold now. That's James. Aren't you like into like CG? No, Tom. Sorry, we want
Tom,
real.
it's important.
For Doom, as Jack alluded, we had initially cast the same people, but I went with the Terminator. He's going to get to the chopper, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I will preface, Dr. Doom, specifically Dr. Doom, does not play a large role in my movie, but Arnold does. And finally, I'm going to cheat a little bit and announce that I also am casting Alicia Masters, Ben Grimm's wife, because she does play a pretty important role in the movie, and that's going to be Michelle Rodriguez.
All right, with our film's cast, it is now time to pitch our James Cameron-helmed Fantastic Four film.
But before we get into those pitches, I do have two questions. First, Jack and Emily, are your films origin films?
No, my film is not an origin film. I do, however, want their origin story on the record as a piece of lore, just because I thought of something and I think it's very funny.
Mine is an origin film of sorts. Everybody has their powers already, though.
Whenever you qualify something, Jack, it always makes me both nervous and excited for what you have planned. Mine is not an origin film. They've been established for some time in this James Cameron Marvel universe. So no, it is not an origin film. But my second question is, are your films part of the MCU?
Not explicitly. I mean, I guess it could be. There's no reason for it to be.
Mine is part of an MCU.
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for you to say that. Not the first time. You've thrown that at me. And each time I'm somehow surprised when I probably shouldn't be.
That being said, this is a different MCU from the other MCU that I have created for this podcast.
Mine could be. I don't think it is. I think this is just a James Cameron. If like James Cameron had control of a Marvel Cinematic Universe of his own, like it would be part of this big world, but not the MCU that we're used to.
It'd be part of his Spider-Man universe where Spider-Man has sex with Mary Jane in a web and ties her up with his webbing.
So dumb.
So dumb.
I feel like that should just be the what if So Dumb cast like did a Fantastic Four film like that is. And we had a Michael Bay episode, people, and this the stuff we've talked about is way dumber than anything we talked about in that episode.
All right, well, let's get into the dumbness. Emily, take it away.
All right. Now, my pitch has nothing to do with their origin story, but I would like it on the record that the Fantastic Four all got their powers by eating the
spiked PCP lobster chowder on the set of Titanic.
Scientists have recently discovered a mineral in the Black Sea's water that can be used to build endoskeletons, a la the Terminator, which is particularly useful for creating an army in disguise. Doom seeks to control this and wants to do it nice and cozy from his home of Latveria. To do this, he plans to destroy everything between Latveria and the Black Sea to bring the border to himself. And this also works out for him really well just because he's always been a little pissed off about being a whale that isn't a ruler of a landlocked country. So it works for him. So he's moved out to the shoreline. Right off the shore, he set up his barges, his ships, his heavy machinery. He's going to begin chipping away at this land on his way home, leaving destruction in his wake, displacing everyone in the path. Back at the Baxter Building, Reed and Sue have been studying this material. They know what it can do. We don't know what it can do, maybe just because I didn't think that far into this. But we know that it's powerful and that they hear of Doom's plans and they know that he shouldn't have access right up to his homeland, have access to this water where he can just get this material out of it. And not just because of that, but because of, all the real people's lives that are being disrupted and the ecological turmoil that this will place on the land. So of course they proceed to do something about it. They proceed to go over there, and a battle ensues, as battles ensue in a James Cameron movie. And of course it is a battle at sea. It's set on the water, is they have to take down this on land, is the unsinkable, the Thing herself, Kathy Bates. There's a big set piece where she sets herself up as an iceberg in the water to run into a ship. But it's a big James Cameron set piece fight. It is dumb. It's on the water. The ships are sinking. And of course, from his ship, we have Payakin Von Doom. And while it looks like near the end of this battle, it looks like he falls in the water and he could die, we do remember he is a whale. He does know how to swim. And I think that's where we kind of leave it. He disappears into the water. He swims off. We don't know where he's going. Is he going home? Is he going somewhere else? We don't know, but we know that these people have been saved. And we know that for now, Doom is not building an army of Terminators. But who's to say? The water's still there. They can't do anything about that. Who's to say anything else until the inevitable 4 more movies in this universe?
I love that you're already franchise player. You have to with James Cameron.
I have to. It's Marvel and James Cameron. You got to franchise it.
Oh yeah, 100%. Though I don't know if Marvel will tolerate 13 years between films, but
they will with James Cameron.
That's true.
I think it might need to be a film them all at once situation.
Get the technology going as right. Time goes along.
Yeah. Obviously, this will be shot in high frame rate and 3D.
And IMAX.
And IMAX.
Naturally.
Obviously.
Of course.
Jack, what about your pitch?
My pitch is called Forv Fort 4, which is Avatar, but with all the A's as 4s. In the year 4444, Reed Richards is a scientist working on the Dune ship. And this Doom ship is taking him to the planet known as Panfora, a planet with only 3 known inhabitants. So because it only has 3 people, the natural resources on this planet are bountiful. But the most important element there is, of course, Fantasticma. Reed Richards is chosen to go and interact with these 3 people because there is a rumor that he might be able to communicate with them in a different way than others who have attempted to meet with them. Because, there's this whole rumor of so many have gone to try to meet with them, but none have returned. He meets Dr. Doom the Fourth, played by Stephen Lang, who tells him, "You used to work with my great grandfather." And Reed says, "That was a long time ago. I'm not that man anymore. I don't even have," but he trails off. Dr. Doom the Fourth tells him, well, you might need to relearn it a little bit. Dr. Doom the Fourth goes into this whole spiel with Reed Richards and the rest of his soldiers where he says, you're not in Kansas anymore. He does this whole thing. And eventually Reed Richards goes into some sort of tube that shoots him in a sort of scientific mumbo jumbo thing. Reed Richards wakes up. He looks to his left. He looks to his right. He looks down. His arms and legs are stretching. Again, how did this happen? We find out that this has been taking place in the Fantastic Four universe from the Tim Story movies with Jessica Alba, Chris Evans, and Michael Chiklis. And Reed Richards gets this whole backstory of where he remembers, like, this is who you used to be. We need you to be this person once again. Reed Richards is unsure of as to why. So he goes into Panfora and he's searching for these three people. He doesn't know if they're going to be all spread out. He doesn't know what's going to happen. He walks into something. He looks around. That's weird. It just looks like there's forest around him. He reaches out and his hand sort of flips back up. He's trying to fight, but he can't see who he's fighting. Finally, stretches out, wraps his arm around something, and pulls someone in who then reappears. It's Edie Falco as Sue Storm. He suddenly has this blast from the past. He tells Sue, I used to know someone like you. And she says, kid, you've never known anyone like me. She takes him to Panfora's version of the Tree of Souls, which is, of course, rich with Fantasticma. And she gives him the whole backstory of Panfora. The idea that this planet was inspired by these four heroes of Earth, but they could never find their fourth. They need their fourth, their savior. Reed looks down at his arms, which of course are stretching. And he's like, I think I may be what you're looking for. Meanwhile, Dr. Doom the Fourth is, of course, trying to communicate to him, like, you got to get the Fantasticma for us, Reed. You've got to get it for us. We're desperate back on Earth for something fantastic. But of course, Reed's conflicted now. Does he go with Doom, or does he stay with this person who he feels like he's known for years, who he used to love even? Of course, he joins with Sue to fight Doom, fight the Doom ship. He thinks he kills Dr. Doom, but of course he doesn't. There's this hour-long battle that takes place where Dr. Doom is thought to be killed, but he's got this mech suit on and he comes back to life looking more like comics era Dr. Doom. Sue Storm tells him, come, there are more that you need to meet. We will unite the four. Of course, setting up our franchise, where in movie 2, we meet the Fire of Johnny. Movie 3, we meet the Earth of Ben. Movie 4 is the culmination of the Fantastic Four, where the Fantastic Four eventually fight Dr. Doom, who has grown into this all-powerful being. Taking place on Panfora, this is Fort 4.
I wish I had a comment. I really don't.
Because it's too brilliant. It's exactly what James Cameron would make, and it's brilliant.
Panfora
and Fantasticma, come on.
And
like Avatar.
Fort 4.
You know what we never mentioned? Avatar 2 was nominated for Best Picture currently.
It was. It is currently
I
nominated.
just thought of that.
Purposefully did not mention that.
I just thought of that.
I forgot.
It's gonna lose.
The thing is, like, many are gonna lose. I just wish it lose a little more. Like, somehow, if a movie could be like, sorry, yeah, this actually is the loser. You are last place among all of us. Like, that would be.
They released the right choice ballots, and it's number 10.
I was gonna say, release the numbers. Release the rounds.
Dan, I know that those are tough acts to follow, but what do you got for us?
So my pitch, this is going to be, for no particular reason, the third film in this franchise. So it is Fantastic Four number 3. The full title is Fantastic Four 3, Fantastic, Doomsday, parentheses, False Truths. That is the whole title. This is a 5-hour, 3 VHS tape epic that opens with the title card that says 2 years after, insert whatever Avengers level threat occurred in the previous franchise film. So some time has happened since they had this big fight. The Fantastic Four are in some downtime. Reed and Sue are preparing to leave for a vacation on a new state-of-the-art space cruiser, set off to explore the most beautiful locations across the universe. This big, expansive ship, the biggest of its kind, the newest, nicest of its kind. The two of them are going to go take a nice reprieve from all their superheroing. Johnny, Ben, and Ben's wife Alicia are at the space dock, there to see them off. After the goodbyes and waves, the film diverges into three separate storylines, with two of them being the main focus, kind of alternating scenes here and there. The first storyline, though, is Johnny. This is actually the last time we'll see him till the end of the film. Once the ship departs with Reed and Sue, Johnny gets a message on his phone, and he's like, uh-oh. Apparently Medusa found out that I slept with her sister. In this iteration of the universe, Ike Perlmutter didn't fuck up the Inhumans, and like in the comics, Johnny has had a relationship with both Inhumans Medusa, the one with like the hair that she can control, and her younger sister Crystal, who can control the elements. He's like, okay, this isn't going to be a fun conversation, and he flies off to go take care of that love triangle drama. The second storyline is Reed and Sue. The first part of their story is them enjoying their trip and reflecting on the times they've had being heroes. We get some flashbacks to previous heroic encounters and dreams of what their lives may look like going forward. We meet some interesting people, do some cruise activities, marvel at some incredible astrological events, and have some very nice meals. However, a few days into their journey, during a game of space shuffleboard, alarms start blaring. Reed and Sue hurry to the bridge to see how they can help and are told it is a giant wave of lifeforms speeding towards the ship. They look at each other. The annihilation wave. With little time before the wave impacts the ship, they do their best to help escort passengers to the safest parts of the ship, including the escape pods. Wham! The ship goes dark before emergency powers bring back some light. Reed and Sue ready themselves for Annihilus and his forces, but as they wait, they hear skittering in the darkened hallways. But as the Horde approaches, it's not Annihilus and his forces, it's the Brood. For those of you who don't know, the Brood are very similar. They're actually more of an X-Men villain, but they're like these parasitic hordes that take over people's bodies. Totally nothing like xenomorphs or anything. So the rest of their story is them trying to fight off the Brood and those taken over by them. But ultimately, the only way to defeat them is to self-destruct the ship. Doing what they can to warn any remaining passengers that have not been taken over to get to safety or escape pods. They fight their way to the control room and rig the ship to explode. After another big fight with the Brood Queen, the ship erupts and the two are propelled through space, clinging to life support and a piece of wreckage. Here we have a super dumb scene where it's like, Sue's like, Reed, don't let go of the wreckage, don't let go. And he's like, I can't, I can literally stretch to stop. And she makes a force field and they just are floating in space. As they're floating through space for what feels like days, a force starts pulling on the force field. A deep, dark abyss in space. They are sucked through and we are unaware of what their fate is. The next storyline we shift, or I guess the final storyline, we shift to Alicia and Ben. After they say their goodbyes, it's like, okay, it's time to go home. As they're walking home, we shift to a different scene where this big kind of time warp bubble emerges. And there, who do we see? A naked Arnold Schwarzenegger. But this time, though he's naked, he's like metal. And in this iteration, he's not a Terminator, he's a Doombot. So he is implying that Dr. Doom is Arnold Schwarzenegger, but this is just a robotic version of what a Dr. Doom. And we see the normal electronic screen saying we've got to find the target, and he walks off. Throughout this, he's killing people trying to find who his target is. Ben and Alicia get home, start making comfortable, and an explosion happens. And he's like, target acquired. And Ben's like, Alicia, stay back. He's like, no, not you, her. Well, they fight it off, able to run away, escape. And Ben's like, why is that thing after you? This is where Alicia confesses to Ben that she's been a secret agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. the whole time. Nothing like True Lies at all. Nothing like that. And she said, but I don't mean to be rude, but you're blind. How are you able to fight? And she's like, Matt Murdock taught me. So call back to a character who's not actually in the movie, but just, let's a little Easter egg here. So the rest of that is them trying to fight off the Doombot, get away, escape. And once they do, things start going back to normal. They haven't heard from Johnny yet, but they get a message telling them about what happened on the ship that Reed and Sue were on. They're crushed, they're heartbroken, and of course, naturally, this is when Johnny returns. Hearing that his sister probably is dead, he breaks down, blows up in a big fiery explosion, and that's where we think the movie ends. In the mid-credits scene, we get to a shot of this dystopian future. We see Doombots being made in this AI-like factory, and we keep zooming into this chair. You're led to believe that it's Dr. Doom. Turns around, you see the mask. It's like, we have to kill Alicia Masters. She's the only one that will foil our plans. Takes off the mask. It's Johnny Storm as Dr. Doom, or faux Dr. Doom. Goes black. More credits, of course. Final scene. We see Reed and Sue have crashed on this planet, this jungle-escent planet, and they're like, oh, where are we? Reed like puts a little monitor thing on his wrist. I don't know, but I'm getting some weird readings, some elements that I'm not even familiar of. As they get up, they turn around, and all you see is kind of the side profile, like I'd say torso down of this long blue creature, and that's where the film ends.
Dan, I'm not gonna lie, when you said we think that's where the movie ends, I thought you were gonna be like, so that's the halfway point.
I did say this is going to be like a 5-hour movie because I am literally stealing from like six movies.
Mm-hmm. Well, much like a James Cameron movie, it would be 5 hours long, and I'd watch all of it.
Yeah, like I said, you'll need 3 VHS tapes for it.
So dumb.
Like I really struggle. I tried writing this 3 times, and I'm like, this is not worth the 5 pages I've already gotten through. So like that was a reduced version of what I had written. I'm like, fuck this. I do not need to say all of this. It is not worth the brain power. So like that was long. I had a longer pitch than this, and I removed it for all of our sakes.
I started working on my pitch, and I was like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know if my brain can come up with specifics that are worthy of something so dumb.
I came up with a title and I ran with it.
It's good.
It's really good.
My whole idea was like,
good.
how many movies can I cram into this pitch?
I came up with, I was like, Kayakin, whale.
How?
Kathy Bates is Ben Grimm.
Inspired casting.
Yeah.
I was like, I need 2 things. Everything in between is not important. Much like a James Cameron movie, everything in between the set pieces is filler.
To be fair, yours is certainly more of a pitch. Jack and I tend to give like spec scripts for our what should be pitches. So yours was actually legitimately a pitch.
I've fallen off a little bit recently with the spec scripts. I think next episode, Dan, I'm going to have to actually buckle down and write another movie.
We'll have to get a director in mind that'll really inspire you, because James Cameron is dumb.
But
looks incredible. These movies, I'm sure, look incredible.
They'll look amazing, and they'll make $50 billion.
Like, so much money.
Not as much as Cocaine Bear will make at the box office, but close to it.
Star of the box office.
Cocaine Bear. And, again, still not quite up there with 80 for Brady, but
of course, but what is?
Right.
What could be? What could be?
Nothing that I'm aware of. Well, there you have it. Our fan castings, our pitches, all done for a James Cameron Fantastic Four film. We hope you, the listeners, enjoyed or at least tolerated our exploration into this what-if scenario. We want to make special note that the Fancast at 4 podcast is hosted for free on Anchor, and we encourage you, if you have your own podcast idea, to check it out. It really is a great resource for getting your idea off the ground. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube.
If you are listening on YouTube, we greatly appreciate you hitting the subscribe button and commenting with who your James Cameron cast would be, on what you thought of our lists and pitches, and on which director you'd like to see next.
I want to thank Matt Hart and Maddie Gunner for the fantastic theme music they created for us, and I certainly want to thank you, Emily, for joining us today. I hope you had fun. Please, tell our listeners a little bit where they can find you.
I am on Twitter and Instagram at Emily Essex 15, and I am on Letterboxd at Emily Essex.
Yes, Emily's a very good Letterboxd follow, I will say.
Wonderful. That is our show. Thank you all so much for listening. I am Dan Bettenhausen.
I am Jack Mayer.
And on behalf of our guest, Emily Essex, we hope you all stay fantastic.